So in today's debate, we are contemplating the topic of autonomous vehicles. And personally, I don't think we should have them. The reasons why I don't think we should have them are basically the infrastructure for these vehicles, the ethical and moral problems that these vehicles, have to, go through every day, and is society ready for these vehicles? I mean, do we as a society have enough, you know, maturity and understanding and knowledge about these to really integrate them into society? So the first thing about the infrastructure is we'd have to fix the roads that are already, messed up, have holes and everything else like that before we can even think about having these vehicles. The ASCE, which is the American Society for Civil Engineers, does a yearly ranking of how well each country's, well, for America, how well their streets are, like the infrastructure, and this includes roads, building or bridges and highways. And this autonomous vehicle system has to have a good road, bridge and highway to drive on, or all the simulation testing in the world is not going to help. They can't account for every little detail. So these roads have to be fixed. And originally it was thought to be about $2 trillion, but the ASCE expects about $4.5 trillion by the end of 2025. And Lance Elliott, who's actually a artificial intelligence and machine learning expert, says we should be ashamed of our ASCE rating. I mean, we got a D plus, which is failing if you think about it. But then we get into the issue of, well, what's moral and what's ethical. And the issue with this is you can do all the simulation testing in the world, but there's certain things that you can't account for that can happen because there's no set standard for what's going to happen. And you run into the issue of, well, what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do? And they've done several surveys, of different cultures and different countries and different people, what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do. And what was interesting is in an article they did a survey, and a lot of the Americans said, well, we'd rather the pedestrians live and sacrifice the lives of the passengers if there were an event between the pedestrians and the passengers. But these people also said that they'd rather not buy these cars if they're programmed to do this, because then there's eventually going to be something where there's going to be a passenger and a pedestrian, and if the pedestrian's not going to get hit, the passenger's going to die. I wouldn't want to buy a car that's going to kill me if somebody else comes in the front of me. I didn't do that. I can't account for that. And lastly, is society ready for this kind of technology? The issue is we still haven't done any real safety testing on the road that's been successful enough to us to really say that we could do this. And the issue is too that these people on the roads and walking and riding their bikes, they're a part of the experiment and safety testing, but these people don't know. I feel like they should have a right to know. If somebody's not driving their vehicle and I assume that they're driving their vehicle while I'm walking across the road and it hits me, I'd be very upset. And I think society would have the same kind of negative attitude towards a car that's supposed to, decrease the amount of accidents that overall eventually will cause more issues than what will help. So then you have local transportation, which could be a viable option, but at the same time, you have these situations of what goes wrong. What if something goes wrong, and you can't drive it? You you can't. I mean, it's supposed to drive itself. Now, if they integrated this technology with something you'd be able to control, then it wouldn't be fully autonomous, and then we get to that argument. But at the end of the day, does the safety of someone around an autonomous vehicle, getting subjected to experimentation and simulation on the roads, worth the overall benefit in the long run? Or do we get back to that ethical and moral situation of, hey, is this right? Is this really what we need to be doing to people? Can we create a closed environment where we simulate, you know, real people's actions with, you know, proper safety concerns? But this kind of ideology hasn't even been thought about. A lot of these states and governments don't even have regulations for what safety is for these vehicles because they're so new. I mean, how much can we do safely until it becomes a problem for other people? And then how do we overcome that? And we're just not to that point yet as a society. So I think autonomous vehicles, between the 4.5 trillion estimate from the ASCE and the legal, ethical, and moral problems that we'll have between who do we decide lives or dies. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest ethical issues ever. But at the end of the day, I don't think society's ready for these vehicles. And I think it's going to be a long time before we're ready for these. They can, help save a lot of lives. But with new driving assist systems and everything else like that that help the driver understand, I think is moving towards a positive direction. And if we took all that infrastructure money, halved it, even just made the roads slightly better, and took that other money and put it towards helping the driver drive better in every situation, I think would be a better result than fully autonomous vehicles.